Hey y'all, it's Jessica from Sloppy Swatches. Today I have a look at the Let's Head to the Beach collection that's available now from Colors by Llarowe. From this point going forward, I do believe that all U.S. purchases of any Colors by Llarowe polishes will need to be made through the Colors for Nails website. I'll link them down below so you can check them out. They are in stock right now, but they are super limited. These will also be available at the next Indie Shop event. I'll link some more information down below for that if you are interested. So these polishes were sent to me for review. If you are a blue or green lover, this collection is going to be perfect for you. And there's also some unicorn pea pigment polishes sprinkled throughout. So let's go ahead and get started. This first polish is called Building Sandcastles, and it's described as a white crelly base with that UP or unicorn pigment and aurora pigment that creates an intense shimmer against the crelly that shifts from red to gold to green. So you do get a ton of shifting here. You can see that red coming really strong off the brush. This is a white crelly, so it is fairly sheer. At 3 coats, it still wasn't completely opaque. If you would prefer, you could use this one as a topper over any cream, especially the creams in this collection. It's really going to pop, or over a darker color. So here's a look at my third and final coat for today. It does make for a very clean look. I do tend to have yellow tips on my nails because I paint them so much, and this kind of brightened everything, plus added a really cool shimmer. So here's a look at that completed mani at 3 coats before a glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting, and then here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. So lots of really strong red to green shift. This is my final swatch photo at an angle once more in that direct sunlight. So next up is Banana Smoothie, and this polish is described as a soft yellow crelly with that UP and aurora pigment that creates that intense shift of a red to gold to green. This time we have a really vivid and fun yellow base. Again, this does apply much like Building Sandcastles. It's a little bit on the sheer side. It does for sure double as a topper, so you could put this over any polish as a base. Here's a look at that second coat. I am going in a little bit thicker here with this crelly. I didn't have any problems with dry time or application. Going in a little bit thicker, but it does help amp up the coverage just a little bit. So here is my third and final coat. I really do like that unicorn pea pigment on this yellow base. A really cool and unique polish. So here's a look at that completed mani at 3 coats before a glossy top coat. I do still have a good bit of visible nail line there. And then here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. So this is my final swatch photo at an angle, again in that direct sunlight. So super cool, really unique mix. Next up is High Tide, and this polish is described as an azure blue crelly base with aurora pigment that shifts from bright aqua to pink to bright sky blue. So this one is so summery. It is a crelly formula, so again, that does mean it's a little bit more on the sheer side. It's one that you're definitely going to have to build up a little bit, but it does allow all of that shimmer to build up and show through all the layers for a really cool squishy finish. So there's a look at that first coat, and here is a look at my second coat. Again, I am working a little bit thicker here with this crelly formula. I didn't have any problems with application. It didn't pull on me or stain or anything like that. 2 coats was really close to being completely opaque. That third is going to just add a little bit more depth and for sure some more coverage. I do prefer this one at 3 coats. So here's a look at that completed mani at 3 coats before a glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting, and then once more in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. So shimmer for days. That's my final swatch photo. And then this next polish is where it gets into the cream formulas, which I am super impressed with these. So this one is Azure Thing, and it's described as a light azure blue crelly. So this time we get that crelly kind of formula, but without the shimmer. This first coat did go on really sheer. This is one that you're going to have to build up, but the finish is so worth it, really cool and glossy. So here's a look at that second coat. It did amp up that coverage a little bit. This one is a little bit more on the streaky side, but this third coat is for sure going to even that right out for you. So 3 coats did make for complete coverage. This one does dry down to a nice hard glossy finish. Here's the look of that completed mani at 3 coats before a glossy top coat. It does look like I have a ton of visible nail line here. That's just my mirror base showing that off. And then this is my final swatch photo. So next up is Let's Boogie, and this polish is described as a turquoise green crelly with a super shiny finish. So again, this is that kind of crelly cream formula. It is showing up a tad bit more vivid on my camera. I think all of the crellies really did than they are in person, but this is a beautiful bright green color turquoise with just a touch of mint in there to make it perfect for summer. So that first coat, again, really sheer. Second coat is going to add a little bit more to it, but I do really like the finish here at 3. I think depending on how thick you go in with your application, you may be able to get away with just 2. I think it's really down to personal preference. So here's a look at that completed mani at 2 coats before a glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. And then this is my final swatch photo at an angle under that same artificial lighting. So next up is High Quality H2o, and I want to say that this is my top pick of the collection. So this polish is described as an ocean blue Crelly. I do think it is a super close dupe to the original Pacific Blue from the Sally Hansen line. This one did go on a tad streaky, but it is going to build up really well, and again, that 2 to 3 coats depending on your application. I wore this polish for a straight week with no chipping or staining issues. It's just really, really gorgeous. Perfect blue for summer. So there's a look at that completed mani at 2 coats before a glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. And then this is my final swatch photo at an angle in direct sunlight. So next up is This Side of Heaven, and this polish is described as a turquoise blue Crelly with that unicorn pea pigment and aurora pigment that creates an intense shimmer against the turquoise Crelly that shifts from red to gold to green. Tons of shifting here. I would say that this hit me as more of a jelly formula. Again, it was a little bit sheer here. This first coat did go on nice and even just quite sheer. So here's a look at that second coat. It is going to build up on that turquoise base, add more of that shimmer, but it was still quite sheer. Even with this third and final coat, I did still have quite a bit of visible nail line. I think I would prefer this one as a topper, especially over maybe High Quality H2o or one of the greens in this collection. So here's a look at that completed mani at 3 coats before a glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. And here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. So next up is Moonlight on the water, and this is another top pick for me. This color is intense. It goes on beautifully. So it's described as a royal blue base, a multichrome that shifts from a royal blue to aqua to purple with added aurora pigment that shifts from aqua to purple. The shifting is not super intense. You do get little flashes of it, especially at intense angles, but the formula is what makes this one so awesome. It is super, super vivid, very dark on the nail. 2 coats made for pretty well complete coverage. Depending on your application method, you may want to go in for that third. I didn't have any staining with this polish at all, and I was just kind of mesmerized about how it looked on the nail. So here's a look at that third and final coat. And here's a quick view from a different angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. So a little bit of that shifting going on here. You're going to see it more in indirect or artificial lighting. So next up is Hang Ten, and this beauty is described as a blurple Crelly with that unicorn pea pigment and aurora pigment that creates an intense shimmer off the blurple Crelly that shifts from red to gold to green. So I picked up a lot of those red tones here. This is one of my favorite combinations of all time, that red shimmer on a purple base. Super pretty. It is quite sheer, however. So here's a look at that second coat. You can see that blurple base is kind of building up a little bit here to make more of an intense color payoff. It is still quite sheer, so I'm going to let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with my third and final coat. So I did go in a little bit heavy here, but even at 3 coats, I did still have quite a bit of visible nail line. I do appreciate that jelly finish, but I do think that I would prefer this one as a topper, especially over maybe a purple. So here's a view from another angle and direct, kind of overcast sunlight, and then this is my final swatch photo at an angle in that direct sunlight. So last up today, I have Surfs Up, and this polish is described as an azure blue base multi-chrome that shifts from azure to aqua to purple to pink. So again, super shifty. You can see there in the bottle. It is maybe a little bit more subtle on the nails. So here's a look at that first easy coat. This one goes on super easy. I didn't have any issues with pulling or really even brush stroking, maybe minimally here. It is just a little bit sheer. You're definitely going to want to build it up. So here's a look at that second coat. It does amp up that coverage and adds a ton more of that shimmer. I am going to go in for a third and final coat, and it did push this one completely opaque for me, especially if you're working with thicker coats. Just give it a little bit more time to dry. So here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat, and this is my final swatch photo at an angle in that direct sunlight. So that does wrap up my swatch and review of the Let's Head to the Beach collection. These are available right now, super limited at Color for Nails, and also I believe Rainbow Connection UK. I'll go ahead and link those down below, and if I see anywhere else, I'll pop the links down as well. If you're interested in seeing any more photos of any of the polishes featured here today, I do have those available on my blog at sloppyswatches.com, or you can also follow me on Instagram at sloppyswatches. So thanks so much for watching, guys. See you next time.